Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Jake Gordon and Alex Lord. While Darius Vines was shoving for the Major League squad, Kyle Wright was down with Gwinnett, making his second rehab assignment after looking really good in Rome. But this is his first against, kind of close to MLB competition. But the results to me don't really matter. Listen. His fastball didn't have as much life as we're typically used to. It's sitting around 93, 94. We've seen it run up to 96, 97 in the majors. His curveball was definitely – he didn't have control of it. Like, he wasn't able to harness control of it. It was a shaky start. He didn't look great. But listen, that's going to happen. This is only his second start back, and the guy hasn't pitched in months. So I'm not really worried about that. The thing that I was looking for is pitch count. And he only threw 31 pitches after throwing 26 last time. I was really hoping that was going to be closer to 40 and 45, but he had a long second inning and ended up getting pulled in the second inning after giving up a 2-run double. So when looking about when he could potentially return, I mean, the absolute earliest is late September. I mean, probably after September 15th sometime. And then he's got to show some life at the major league level. He's not going to be completely stretched out. There's no way after only throwing 30 pitches. But if he's around 80, 85, it doesn't really matter. We just need to see him against MLB pitchers. I was a bit discouraged. Like, I came away from last night. I watched his outing. I saw him throw 31 pitches, and I said, it's hard for me to imagine this guy being on the NLDS roster, especially with the way Bryce Elder has pitched of late.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and it's kind of tough because we were saying the complete opposite a week ago on this show. We were like, oh yeah, he looked great in the first one. He's going to be back. We were really hopeful. You watched it. I didn't get to watch it yesterday. I didn't plan on it. I say I didn't get to. I wasn't going to watch it anyways. But it is a little disappointing. Maybe something changes. Maybe he'll go out and throw 60 next start, and we'll kind of get a little more confidence. But I'm with you. I think right now it's a little bit doubtful that he makes the postseason roster, especially considering the fact that you don't need 5 pitchers. Maybe they just call this a lost year for him, and we see him in 2024.
Yeah, I think maybe a thought, just thinking optimistically, that he could have gone 40. He could have gone 45. He just got roughed up, and, they were like, all right, that's it. There's no reason to throw you back out there. Even for, behind the scenes, he could be throwing simulated games, 40, 45 pitches. We don't know. And if you do think in that optimistic tone, around the 20th, which would get him maybe 2 starts before October, and then maybe – if he shows enough in those 2 starts with the Braves, then maybe he's on the NLDS roster. But those are all very, very, very optimistic takeaways. I think that the NLD roster is probably not going to happen. I said that I think even before he began his rehab start, it was just and it had more to do with the faith in the actual the rotation as it stands today. And I was saying that when they were going through all those slumps, I just thought that, it'll work itself out. And we were all saying that. That wasn't just me. The rotation was going to work itself out, and it's worked itself out. You'd be hard-pressed to find a 1, 2, 3 better than Fried, Strider, Morton. I said it on Twitter, and then somebody said, yeah, but a nice fourth, a good fourth starter would be a bad thing, right? Bryce Elder is one of the best, if not the best, fourth starter in the league. So, I don't understand the sentiment. Still, fans are like, well, we should have added a pitcher at the trade deadline. Who? And for what? I mean, the rotation is solid. And, even if Kyle Wright doesn't get back, I'm still confident. And the NLCS isn't out of the question.
Yeah, I think something to look at. They play the Dodgers this week, and that could definitely be the NLCS matchup. I think if the Braves, they're going to have a much harder matchup. It looks like they're probably going to have to play the Phillies, so they're going to have a much harder matchup getting to the NLCS. But if they do, I think the Dodgers will be waiting for them in the NLCS. One thing to think about this weekend, Bryce Elder does face the Dodgers. So if he goes out there and gets roughed up by the Dodgers or something like that and looks really bad, potentially maybe they make that decision, because then you're looking at October 15th when the NLCS starts, and that'll be plenty of time for Kyle Wright to get stretched out behind the scenes and stuff like that. So potentially the NLCS, I think that's much more likely than the NLDS. You don't even need 4 starters for the NLDS this year because, like I've said a million times, the way the schedule works out, you can trust Fried and Strider and then Morton. So watch for Elder this weekend, see how he does. And then maybe if they think Kyle Wright looks good, maybe they'll switch that up. But it's really just between Elder and Kyle Wright once you get to a 7-game series. That is the only decision that you're going to be making.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I know we've seen it a few times in the past few years. Like Max Fried did it, I think, in 2019. they'll use a starter kind of as like a long reliever, like a break glass in case of emergency long reliever. I mean, they did it with Kyle Wright, honestly, sort of, I guess, in 2021. And see if they use him in that type of role to where it's not super high leverage. Once like you said though, it's just something we're just gonna have to wait and see. It's not a yes or a no right now.
And another thing, just to add on top of what you guys just said, we saw last year, and I know Kyle Wright is not in the same conversation, in terms of ace as Spencer Strider and Max Fried. Spencer Strider had an oblique injury and was just not even, half of what the guy we've come to know. And they threw him out there versus the Phillies. Max Fried, totally different, ace of the staff. He's not going to take no for an answer. Down 15 pounds from the flu or whatever sickness he had. And they threw him out in game one. So I think, like Chase said, if Elder just shows we're not comfortable, which still you could throw him out there 2 times through the rotation and just yank him at the first sign of like stuff going wrong. I don't think the Braves are going to be scared to throw Kyle Wright out there as long as health permits. Like, I really don't think so at all. And it might not be the DS, but certainly the CS.
I think the biggest difference between that is the fact that you actually have like a competent starting rotation. Like last year without Spencer Strider, like we had nobody else. Like there was nobody else. Like this time you at least have a guy like Bryce Elder who's pitched really well this year. And like you said, he's not, I would be shocked if there's ever a start in the playoffs where Bryce Elder is facing a lineup for a third time. Like they're just trying to get him out there for the first 2 times through the order and then get it to this bullpen, which has been the best bullpen in baseball for the last month and a half. So I think that's the plan. I feel confident in the Braves starters regardless. But Kyle Wright just seems like 2024 to me, which is fine. The Braves can easily win the World Series without Kyle Wright. I don't think there's any doubt about that in my mind.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
Name off the names that started for the World Series run. I mean, name off some of those names.
They did it without Ronald Acuna. I mean,
Tucker Davidson and
shout out Tucker Davidson, friend of the show back in 2017.
Yeah, he was a boss. He was a boss. But yeah, I mean, we
got a ring.
Yeah, we did Tucker Davidson, Dylan Lee, and Kyle Wright came out, and that was before Kyle Wright, it is what he is now, or is what he was last year. That was and they pitched well. And they pitched well, and they have it. And listen, even if the Braves have to do it, they have enough bullpen depth where they could do a bullpen game too. Michael Tompkins pitched well. We'll see about McHugh, but he could easily give you a few innings. Dylan Lee, they're trying to stretch out, so we'll see about that. Coming up after the break, the Falcons announced their official practice squad after cutting down their roster. We're going to break it down.